Welcome, meatheads and meatheadettes, to another episode of King's World. All right, so we had some fun last time, top 10 tips, and I think I'm going to keep that rhythm going for this week since we got a lot of feedback. You guys are loving what I'm doing, and we're going to keep this going with another thing that has to do with my past and my experiences in the sport of bodybuilding. So this week, we're going to talk about the top 5 best advice I've ever received in my bodybuilding career and who gave it to me. This is going to be a good one. Let's do this. It's time to go. The number one advice that I got came from the man who actually introduced me to the sport of bodybuilding. His name was Mr. James Bryant. May he rest in peace. Jimmy, what can I say about Jimmy? He was the guy that got me involved when I first joined the first gym. I think it was my sophomore year in high school. It was called Tyson's Olympia Gym. Folks, this gym was Metroflex R Us, okay? It was loaded with just the most amazing characters. I'm sure you guys have heard me bring up the names Cacciatore, Mondo, Pineapple, Big Walt. I mean, these guys were, imagine being a kid, a sophomore in high school and walking into this gym and you saw these guys with the baggy pants and the hip bags and the string tank tops and the tuna cans, all the smell of tuna. The smell of tuna when you walked into that gym, because back then everybody ate tuna, cans and cans of tuna. And these people, I was just mesmerized. I walked into this gym and I met these people. And of course, who was the leader of the pack? It was Mr. James Bryant. He was a little bit older than them and he was a little bit wiser. And he was a champion at the time, just cleaning house in the Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland area. He was the current Mr. Washington, D.C. when I met him. Well, the story of James Bryant is I joined the gym with my good friend, Mr. Steve Rapalda. And, you know, in high school, you could take off your shirt and train in the gym. It's high school gym. You know, the girls, the cheerleaders used to come watch us train and stuff. And we would take off our shirts. So our first day, like the biggest douchebags that we were, we took off our shirts and we were yelling and screaming. Mr. James Bryant pulled me into the bathroom, slammed me against the wall and said, "You ever pull this shit again and I'll kick your ass." And he really, I mean, he hemmed me up in the bathroom. He was in my face and kicked us out. So the very next day, I went back and I apologized and I said that it would never happen again and I would love it if he could just, you know, let me back in. And he said, "I'll let you back in under one condition. I'll let you back in if you train with me." And that is how the legend of King Kamali started. It was Mr. James Bryant. He taught me everything from the beginning. He taught me how to eat. He taught me how to train. He taught me the essence of bodybuilding. And he was the guy who made me fall in love with the whole lifestyle. And unfortunately, he passed away early. He had a genetic heart problem. Him and his brother, they both passed away. And I will never forget him, and he will always be in my heart. But the best advice that he ever gave me was, be happy in bodybuilding. Don't try to beat everybody in the sport. Beat yourself. That it was the secret that he said will make you a happy bodybuilder, a successful someone. You would enjoy bodybuilding instead of looking at it as work or as suffering. He said just to make sure you just keep beating yourself. Improve on yourself year after year, month after month, year after year, and you will become a successful and happy bodybuilder. Advice number 1, Mr. James Bryant, I will love you and forever rest in peace. Advice number 2, from the legend, the great, the unbelievable Mr. Lee Labrada. Lee was at the Expo Mr. Olympia 2001, and this is the time where all the rumors were spreading around that Chad Nichols was loading us up with plasma expanders and all the nonsense that you can think of. That was the first I heard of it. I had to actually call Chad's room at the Mandalay. I'm like, "Chad, how come you're not giving me plasma expanders? Because everybody else is saying you're giving Ronnie, Nasser, Chris, and Flex plasma expanders." He goes, "King, don't listen to these morons. They don't know what they're talking about." Anyways, that was the story of plasma expanders. But Mr. Lee Labrada I caught up with him at the expo, and he said to me, and some advice that he gave me, he said, King, if you look good 1 week out, why would you want to change anything going up into the show? Just don't change nothing. Coast right into the show. So that was the advice that he gave me, and it stuck. Listen, if you look great at 1 week out, don't do anything drastic. Just coast into the show with a little bit of restriction towards the end. That is how I dial all my clients in. Little bit of restriction. If you look good 1 week out, just coast it in. Mr. Lee Labrada, second best advice I ever got in my bodybuilding career. Third best advice I ever received was from the greatest of all time, Mr. Lee Haney. As I walked off the stage, the 1999 NPC Nationals, I had just rocked the house with my posing routine. I mean, come on, folks. If you get a chance, somehow you can find it. Maybe I can find it and download it for you guys in one of these King's World episodes so you guys can see. I finished my posing routine at the 1999 NPC Nationals by pointing a gun to the audience as machine gun sounds are going off. And I said, NPC, terminated. IFBB, prepare to be infiltrated. I hadn't even won yet. And I was still coming out into the posing song saying that I already beat your asses and I'm about to go into the IFBB. It's not cocky. It was called confidence. And the crowd ate it up. I was watching the judges' faces. They were loving it. I remember Eric Hillman got up and he gave me a pump. Why? Because he was the NPC chairman for Virginia, from my state. He was almost like, he was almost like proud, like that's my guy from my state. And I remember that. I'll never forget it. It was one of the most amazing moments of my life. And I was pumping on stage and I walked off. And as soon as I walked off stage, Lee Haney was standing back there and he said to me, come here, kid. I said, yes, sir. He said, you got the it factor. I'm going to give you some advice right now. He goes, win the crowd and you're going to have a successful and profitable bodybuilding career. Doesn't matter where you place, win the crowd. And that is exactly what I did. Everybody else was charging $500 to a maximum $1,000 per guest posing when they, as a professional. I was charging $3,000. Why? And I was getting booked every single weekend. Every weekend I was in a different city, traveling all over the world, just guest posing. Why? Because of the advice Mr. Haney gave me. I did my routines. I didn't just go out there and do most muscular, and hit a pose. No, I did a 10-minute routine to fogs, to lights, to strobe lights, to outfits, to costumes. And that's what the promoters started to do. And they started to like. Nowadays, sorry folks, I feel bad for you kids because guest posing has become it's become a lost art. It is just walking back and forth, pump, 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 pump. Thank you very much, blah, blah, blah. No, I used to put on a performance. And the promoters loved it. Lee Haney, the greatest of all time, unbelievable. It was what he said to me to this day gives me goosebumps. And I followed his advice and I made a ton of money in the sport of bodybuilding. Mr. Haney, thank you. Fourth best advice I ever got came from the meanest, the nastiest, the most hardcore old school bodybuilder ever. A gentleman by the name of Fairfax Hackley. Fairfax Hackley was one of the top trainers in the Virginia, Maryland, D.C. area. All the bodybuilders used to go to him. And he was almost like a father figure to me too. He saw me come up from the beginnings, 15-year-old kid taking off his shirt in the gyms, coming up the ranks to winning the nationals and going all the way up to the Mr. Olympia. I will never forget when Mitsuru came to shoot me for the Battle for the Olympia video in 2001. And we went to Fairfax's gym, the Gold's Gym in Arlington, Virginia. And we shot the video there. And it was 2 weeks out before the Olympia. And afterwards, when we shot it, he made some comments to Mitsuru on the video. And he came to me. And remember, folks, he never, ever, ever gave me any compliments or anything like that. And he said to me with I could almost see a little tear building up in his eye when he had his hand on my shoulder. He said, finally, proud of you. you made it to the Olympia. He said, learn to suffer. If you love and learn to love to suffer in the sport of bodybuilding, and you can go through the extreme dieting and the hardcore hell of the last 2 weeks, you can do anything in your life. Nothing can stop you. And I'll never forget those words. And Mitsuda was there. He was like, wow. You know, it's like a wow moment. Fairfax Hackley, thank you for teaching me to love to suffer. And the fifth and last best advice I ever received comes from Big Papa, my father, Mr. Papa Kamali. Now, my dad was there from day one. He didn't approve. He didn't approve of what I was doing, but he let me do it. Why? Because when everybody else was going to Georgetown and going to DC and going to Baltimore to LA's and partying and getting drunk, what was I doing? I was eating, sleeping, training, and going to school. George Mason University. College, eat, sleep, train. College, eat, sleep, train. And he didn't like what I was doing. He didn't like the sport of bodybuilding. And the reason why was because I was a smart kid. I was getting good grades. And he was like, why don't you use your brain for something? You know, you could become something, a doctor, a lawyer or something. And I couldn't really explain to him the passion in my heart that I had for bodybuilding. So I did both. And then when it got time, when I knew that I was going to get my pro card and win the nationals, that's exactly what I did. I invited him and my mom for the first time to watch me compete. We went down to Florida. I won the nationals. I walked off stage. My mom ran down the aisle, hugged me, started crying. Everybody else started crying. I remember it was all the women and all the girls and all the men were getting all emotional because my mom was seriously hyperventilating, crying, so proud of me. And my dad, being the cool man that he is, he walked down with his Armani suit and he stood there in his hands like this and he goes, I still don't understand how you're going to make money. And everyone starts cracking up. He goes, okay, you're a champion, but how the hell are you going to make money now? I don't understand. I said, Dad, give me 1 week. What happened? In that 1 week after I got my pro card, Weider called, Weider contract. Muscle Tech called, Muscle Tech contract. Muscle Mag International contract. Physique Bodywear contract. Contract after contract after contract, and all the promoters started to call me for guest posing. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing what happened after that. You don't see that anymore. You're not going to see that anymore. Those days are dead and gone. So sorry to disappoint you kids. The Weider muscle, those days are gone. Now it's social media, who's got the most followers and all that bullshit. But we'll put that aside. The advice that my father gave me. He started to notice something, like I noticed it. No matter what I did, people were talking crap. People will say, they would talk shit behind my back. And I used to get so upset and fight and try to challenge people and meet me here. If you got guts, come to my gym. So one day my father pulled me aside. He goes, son, be happy when people are talking shit behind your back, because that means you matter. That means you're under their skin. He goes, worry when they stop talking about you. And ever since he'd said those words to me, I realized haters gonna hate. And when people talk, when people put shitty comments about you, like they will down in the bottom in the comment section, that's why I always say I love the haters, because they just fuel me and give me power. Pops, best advice I've ever gotten. Monkey off my shoulders and made me understand that when they talk crap, it just means that I'm doing something right. There it is, folks. Top 5 best advice I ever got in the sport of bodybuilding. And once again, thank you very much. I'm going to keep coming. The shows are going to keep getting better and better. Leave your comments, questions, whatever you have down at the bottom. And this is something, the last thing I'm going to do before we finish up this week's show is, a lot of you guys are wondering what I look like right now. What's going on? King, why don't you post this, that? So, me and my training partner, my iron brother, the man who runs Generation Iron Persia, Mr. Big E, Ehsan, we were training the other day. I'm like, Ehsan, let's take a quick pic just so the kids know and the people out there know what I look like right now. So here's the pic that we took just a few days ago. Now you see what I look like. My current weight is 255 pounds. I have the six-pack. I look like I'm getting ready for a show. And for you people who are wondering if I'm getting ready for something, is there a comeback? Here's my answer. You never know. Peace, bitches.